Welcome everyone to the first self-sufficient Sunday of 2024. I believe in today's world we need to be a lot less reliant on the government and outside sources and a little more reliant on ourselves. Now, a lot of you over the past few videos have weighed in the comments on why you feel that you personally want to be more self-sufficient. Could be because Bill Gates is buying up a lot of farmland. In fact, he's the #1 farmland owner in the United States. And then China's right on his heels. There's a famous quote by Henry Kissinger: control the food supply, control the people. For others, I happen to be in this category as well. You just want more control over what goes in your body, your family's body. Factory farming is poisoning our food, poisoning the land, and I just feel like I'm taking control by growing my own. And at the same time, being more self-sufficient. Now, I just did a video last week over on our second channel, Next Level Homestead. I'll put a link down in the video description. Basically, how to be self-sufficient, even with little to no land. It's possible. But if you have space for a garden, this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to go over my top 10 survival foods to help you be more self-sufficient. These are foods you can depend on in times of need, if it ever got to that point. It doesn't even have to be a doomsday scenario. With the price of food nowadays, and it only looks to be going higher, let's do what we can to save money on our grocery bills at the very least. So the 10 crops in this video have to meet certain criteria. Now, let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, if you have one to add, but the criteria for my choices are pretty simple. They have to be easy to grow, they have to provide good yields per square foot, they have to be calorically dense, they have to be nutrient dense, and they have to store well. So each of my 10 choices have to meet 4 out of 5 of those criteria. So my choices are going to go from the least calorically dense in terms of a 4 by 4 square foot raised bed to most calorically dense for a 4 by 4 square foot bed. And the reason I'm choosing a 4 by 4 square foot bed is it levels the playing field across all the choices. So let's jump into the 10 choices so you can start to garden defiantly. Apparel link down below. All right, number 10 is kale. Now, while kale isn't calorically dense, it is nutrient dense. So while you eat some of the other crops to fill up, these are going to give you more of the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals you need for good health. Kale is super easy to grow, and the time to plant it is now. Depending on your climate, kale can be grown most, if not all, the year. It's very heat tolerant and frost tolerant. All right, so you can grow 1 plant per square foot. So 16 plants in a 4 by 4 raised bed. That's going to yield 8 pounds of kale, which adds up to 1,800 calories. And based on an average need of 2,000 calories per day in your diet, kale will feed you for 1 day. So again, not a crop you can rely on heavily for calories. It's more about the nutrient density in this one. Number 9 is cabbage. Same with kale. Cabbage isn't calorically dense, but it is packed with nutrition and fiber, which is going to help fill you up. So in a situation where you need to feel full, cabbage is going to make that happen. It stores well in the fridge. It can just, the head in there can store for a long time, or it can store for even longer and be even healthier if it's made into sauerkraut. I have a video that I did making sauerkraut. I will link it down below. All right, you can fit 8 plants in a 4 by 4 bed, which will get you 16 pounds or 2,000 calories of cabbage. So like kale, it will feed you for 1 day, but you'll probably feel more full on the cabbage versus the kale. Number 8 is corn. Corn has been cultivated by humans for thousands of years. It has double the calories as the previous 2 choices and can be dried and stored for long periods of time, then turned into flour and mixed with other ingredients to make it even more filling. When you're planting corn, do so in blocks versus a row, as it's wind pollinated. So in a block, no matter which way the wind blows, it's going to blow the pollen onto other stalks of corn. You can fit a block of 16 corn stalks into a 4 by 4 raised bed, which is going to yield you about 32 ears of corn. Now that equates to about 4,000 calories or 2 days worth of eating. All right, you guys still with me? I have a bonus if you stick around to the end of the video that's going to make all these choices a lot easier to live with. Number 7 is carrots. Carrots fill you up and they pack a big nutritional punch. Another thing is they're really quick growing, but you can also leave them in the ground to store them and pick them as needed. They can handle really cold weather and frost. If you mulch them heavily where you get snow on the ground in the winter, they'll last out there till you need to eat them. If your ground freezes solid, you will need to dig them up, bring them in, and put them in the refrigerator. But they do last a long time in the fridge or a root cellar or unheated garage if you have one. And in a real pinch, you can eat the tops if needed. You can fit 200 carrots in a 4x4 raised bed, yielding 25 pounds or 4,600 calories of carrots. It's going to feed you for a little over 2 days. Choice number 6 is pumpkin. Another one of those things that pound for pound has less calories but more fiber to fill you up. Pumpkins are easy to grow and can meander around your garden, producing pumpkins in the oddest, most out-of-the-way places. You can save space by planting them under corn like the Native Americans did. They will shade the ground and will keep the weeds down under your corn. You can plant 2 pumpkin vines in a 4x4 raised bed. That's going to produce 50 pounds of pumpkins sporting 6,000 calories. So that will feed you for 3 days. Number 5 is summer squash. We've all grown a couple of zucchini plants and had more produce than we knew what to do with in a couple of months. Good problem to have in survival situations. Summer squash couldn't be easier to grow if you don't deal with squash bugs and squash vine borer, that is. If you do, I'm linking some videos in the description to help you with both of those. Usually you want to pick summer squash like zucchini when it's small, but if maximum food is your goal rather than quality, you might want to let them turn into blimp size before picking. You can grow about 4 summer squash in a 4x4 raised bed and harvest conservatively 80 pounds of food weighing in with 6,400 calories. That's going to feed you for 3 days. Number 4 is potatoes. Now, in the 1800s, my ancestors in Ireland lived off of mainly potatoes. In fact, it's thought that the ratio of their diet was 700 to 1 potatoes to meat. Now, they'll sustain you when nothing else is available. So I am going to link a complete growing guide down in the video description. And now's the time to plant them if you haven't already. You can plant 16 potato plants in a 4x4 raised bed, yielding 50 pounds of food, adding up to 17,000 calories. That's going to feed you for almost 9 days. So the calories now are getting a lot higher. Moving to choice number 3 now, quinoa. Not quinoa, as I thought a long time ago. This one surprised me at how much you could fit into a small space and how many calories it has, along with a great nutrient profile, including a good amount of protein. Quinoa isn't actually grain, it's technically a fruit. The Incas called quinoa the mother grain, as eating this food tended to give you a long life. It can be grown just about in any climate. And you can fit a whopping 64 plants into a 4x4 raised bed. Now, out of this 64 plants, you're going to get 12 pounds of food. But get this, out of that 12 pounds, you get 20,000 calories, sustaining you for 10 days. Amazing. All right, choice number 2, sweet potatoes. So this is one of my favorite things to grow. They're more nutrient dense than a regular potato, they have more fiber, and they are better for you. The people of Tukasenta in Papua New Guinea traditionally survived on a diet made up of 90% sweet potatoes. They grow over 1,000 different varieties. If you live in a long, warm growing season, or you get started early, these would definitely be great to add to your list, and they store a really long time. I'll link a complete growing guide down in the video description. Now you can fit 9 sweet potato plants in a 4x4 raised bed, if you allow space around the bed for the vines to kind of meander. Out of that bed, you can expect to harvest, and I know because I did it last year. I had 2 raised beds, but each one produced 67 pounds of sweet potatoes, which added up to 28,000 calories, feeding you for 13 days. All right, you ready for choice number 1? Drum roll, please. Choice number 1 is pole beans, specifically pinto beans. Beans are really versatile. They're easy to grow and they produce a ton of fruit. They can be eaten green and immature, but their value increases tremendously when they're allowed to mature and dry. They can be stored for up to 6 years if they're kept cool and dry, and you can fit a lot of beans into your garden plan. So with this one, it's a little different because beans, I don't feel are the best growing in raised beds. I feel if you've got a fence, which most people do, or at least one end of your garden where you've got all these raised beds, grow your beans in a row. And let's say you've got a 24-foot row of beans. I plant my beans 6 inches apart. That would give you 48 bean plants. Each plant can yield about a pound of beans throughout the season. So that's 48 pounds of beans weighing in at a whopping 72,000 calories, feeding you for 48 days. So before I get to the bonus, I just want to sum things up. If you planted all of these things, it would take about 10 4x4 raised beds or 5 4x8 raised beds. And that would give you about 3 months of food. Now remember, a lot of these things don't take up the full amount of space for the full growing season. So you can sneak smaller plants in between them when they're still young. Green onions, lettuce, beets, radish, these can all be snuck in around the juvenile plants of all these other things we talked about. And they're going to grow fast and produce fast. You might get 2 or 3 harvests before the other plants grow to shade that area. So that's going to give you more food in the same amount of space. Now about that bonus, there is something missing in pretty much all of these choices that I listed, and that is a little bit of flavor. So my bonus choice would be to plant a small herb garden. Herbs are easy to grow and provide you with a bounty of fresh herbs that not only add flavor, but so many health benefits as well. Pick your favorite ones and get them going. Many are perennial and will provide for you year after year. If we're talking self-sufficiency, I cannot let a video go by without highly recommending chickens. We get 3,000 eggs every year from our 14 chickens. That gives us so much more nutrition and calories to add in with all of these other choices I mentioned. If you've ever thought about having chickens, you owe it to yourself to watch this video right here that I did last year on Next Level Homestead. I'll see you guys next time.